So continuing on my journey to try out the new cards for the expansion, the next card we'll be playing with is, or rather the next archetype we'll be playing with is Evo Portal. It got some interesting cards with all these high cost followers and a bunch of auto evolves that work off of them. So yeah, today we're going to be trying that deck out. Some people say it's very strong. I haven't felt that it was particularly amazing. I think it's like a pretty decent deck, but nothing too crazy. But yeah, first let's look at the deck list we're playing for today. So this is the list we're playing for today. It's not really original. I got it from a video by Rigze, the Japanese YouTuber and former pro player. And I will link his video in the description. I did edit the list a bit by swapping one of the mirrored designs out for another shoddy play thing. So the main idea of this deck is to use Camisilla to get a bunch of free evos. This card is a beast of tempo. You just play her at 7/6/6. And then she summons out a Shoddy Plaything and Substandard Puppet, which you can see are cards that you can run in the deck. Shoddy Plaything is a 1/3 warp. Substandard Puppet is this 3/4, or this 2/1, sorry. And then she will evolve an allied follower whenever it's a 5 cost or more. She'll just evolve it when it comes into the field. And then her Super Evolve deals some damage to the enemy, which is pretty decent stuff. Anyway, the idea is to play her and then use York Zentha. This York Zentha here, it will give you this token spell Depths of the Alt X, which will allow you to clone a 5 cost or more follower and then reduce its cost by 3. So the idea is to just use this to spam Camisillas to keep getting evolves to discount Sandalphon, as well as Chaos Legion's Super Skybound arts, as well as just pressure your opponent on board while chipping damage with Camisilla's Super Evo effect, and look for a finish that way. This deck doesn't run very well with Imari, so you can see Imari's not in here. Other than that, we just run a bunch of Skybound art cards. Zwei is a 5 cost and above follower, and also probably the best general tempo follower for 5 cost, so definitely want to run that. A Substandard Puppet is pretty good. The Accelerate is nice to have. The main body is also good for getting evils, especially when you don't draw Camisilla, which happens sometimes. Yeah, I mean, that's most of the deck list. I think we can start looking at some games. So our first match here is against Sword. I will preface this, all of the gameplay I have for you today is recorded in Sapphire because I dropped down to Sapphire while messing around with decks, especially this card Dragon wasn't doing very well for me, so yeah, it's not as high level as it could be, I guess, but it's probably still fine. I mean, the difference between Diamond and Sapphire is honestly not that big, so yeah, for the mulligan, Zwei, Camisilla in early game, and then if you already have a good 5 cost and above generator, you can consider keeping York Zentha as well, is what I usually go for the mulligan. So in this case, we do keep Zwei and we keep a bunch of other stuff here. I think in this match I was still testing things out for the mulligan, so maybe not the most accurate, but yeah. I'll go ahead and drop Lyria on board here just to have a bit of board presence in case we need to clear followers and stuff. Opponent plays the Ruthless Elf Sword here, which is fine. Anything that isn't Majestic Conquest we are pretty happy with because that is generally the strongest part of Enhanced Sword, so as long as they don't have it, we are in pretty good shape. But then we'll go ahead and drop Zeta Bay here to clear. We will hold on to our extra play point for this turn because Coin Zwei is an absurdly strong move in this meta even, that most classes have trouble answering very well. If they're running like Vials or something, then maybe you can snipe it behind the ward, but I think most people aren't running Vials here. Also, if they're Majestic Conquest, they can clear this, but thankfully they didn't, so our Zwei manages to survive here. But my opponent will evolve Loyal Guard here as just a block for them, a way to block damage going to their face. We're gonna go ahead and play York Zentha and then copy Zwei here. Usually, I would advocate for just holding onto the spell for Camisilla, but as you can see in hand, we have a second York Zentha but no Camisilla, so what we are doing now is basically betting on the fact, or the likelihood that one of these Zweis will survive this turn, and we'll try to get some tempo and damage into my opponent's face so that I can look for a finish without having to rely on Camisilla this game. So we pick out Lyria here, which changes things because Lyria guarantees York Zentha. I mean, not York Zentha, she guarantees Camisilla next turn, so for now we just go ahead and pick up the spell and then just chip them down with Zwei and then put out a bunch of wards with Shoddy Plaything. We have enough card draw, I think, with Gran and Jita, so Early plating isn't great in the late game because it can be quite hard to get to it enhance sometimes. Sorry, it's accelerate sometimes. And we'll go ahead and use Lyria here to guarantee Camisilla. Camisilla is the only 7 cost and number follower in this list, so you are guaranteed Camisilla every time from Lyria, so that's a pretty nice thing to have. And we'll go ahead and Super Evolve here just to maintain tempo. My opponent is pretty low anyway, and I do have Chaos Legion in hand, so my idea is just to keep pressuring them with board so that they don't have time to heal. And then we can look for a finish of Chaos Legion that way. My opponent is finally going to be able to get their Yinmetra Faith Effect active here. They are forced to Super Evo. I don't think they are forced to Super Evo here, but I guess my opponent decided it was the best move, so that's what they go for. I don't think it matters in the grand scheme of things in the end, but just a point of note, I guess. And here we're gonna try to find Sandalphon before we play Camisilla so we can get some Skybound art count going, but unfortunately we do not pick that up, so we'll just go ahead and drop Camisilla here. And once again we will Super Evolve here just to keep up the pressure and chip them down. The important point about this chip is that it puts them down to 2. What is significant about 2 in the sword matchup is that unless they're running Gilneas, which I guess some people are, but arguably with Gilneas they probably won't clear this board too well. Actually they can probably clear it with Gilneas. So if I had Gilneas plus if they had Gilneas plus the Strategist, no, not this. If they had Gilneas plus Heartless Strategist, then I would be in trouble. But they already played 2 copies, so it's unlikely. And in the first place, most people aren't really running Gilneas in sword right now, so we don't have much to worry about. The best, anyway, what I'm getting at is that other than that, the best way for them to heal out of range, and the only way actually is for them to play Enhanced Noelle and then Super Evolve the Drain follower, which is the only way to get out of Chaos Legion range. And if they did that, we could just clear board of Chaos Legion plus Unfailing Alt-X, sorry. And then that'll leave my board empty with no drain targets, which we can finish then following turn Gilneas plus a Sweetness of Veracity here. So even though we are out of Evo points, we are relatively safe in this position. And we hold on to 1 Unfailing Alt-X cost, as I said earlier. And the best way for me to be able to clear that board is Chaos Legion plus Unfailing Alt-X in hand. So that is the idea. Here my opponent just goes for the Loyal Guard, so they don't manage to heal out of range, and they have. So I just have lethal Chaos Legion, but as I mentioned, even if they had Noelle here to heal to 8, we could have cleared with Chaos Legion and just finish them with Gilneas next turn. So that's it for this game. Our next game here is against Dragon, and we are going second. Dragon has a lot of storm damage, so as long as you keep that in mind, it should be winnable. This doesn't have much healing though, so keep that in mind. We have 2 copies of Gilneas that you might have to rely on. So again, for the early game, we keep Zwei, we keep Camisilla. Unfortunately, we did not draw any early game, which is not great for us because we might be taking some chip damage here, which might snowball into a loss later on depending on how things go. Thankfully though, it looks like my opponent didn't have a turn 2 play, which is huge for us, because we really didn't want to coin out Gilneas to answer a turn 2 follower. Because we want to save the coin from Zwei, of course. That's what I'm getting at here. Pick another Zwei, which is quite nice. Gilneas will not clear this, so we just drop UD to draw into our deck, as well as represent or put out a threat on board that they have to answer. Unfortunately though, they do just have the Crest Petal, Bluff, sorry, and then they will just clear it and hit me in the face after buffing their Resolute Dragon Newt, which is not a great start, but now we can hopefully stabilize with these Zweis. Dragon doesn't really have good ways to clear Zwei. They have Merman if my opponent is running Merman, which, I mean, it's unlikely that they're running Merman. And other than Merman, they have Phil Dao, I guess, but it's even more likely to see Phil Dao than Merman, so more or less this Zwei is gonna survive, I think. Oh, if they're running the new one called Silver Spell, but again, people don't really main deck that. So we can go ahead and pick up our clone spell of the Young Xanta here, which is quite nice. And then we go ahead and buff Zwei here. As the most important thing to keep in mind is just that we don't die to a stray Forte, because this deck can struggle to clear Forte in some positions. So just go ahead and buff Zwei here, hit them in the face to sort of pressure them to make it hard for them to just start playing Storm Followers and hitting me in the face. The Zwei is at 3 defense, so even with the one copy of Gilnalese spell they have in hand, they won't be able to clear Zwei there, so it's relatively safe against Forte to just hit face there, while healing of course. Opponent goes white here, which is quite annoying because without the gold spell, we don't have a good way to clear 4 bodies. But I think it's still best to play Camisilla as early as possible, just because her value and her difficulty of clearing falls off in the late game, so it's best to get her out as early as possible. And even better if you can copy Camisilla, of course, which is what we do manage to do here. Turn 6 Camisilla into turn 7 Camisilla is quite a big high roll for this deck, so it's quite nice for us. So now we'll play Sagatsumatsu here, and then they will get the Borlalai, which will be able to clear my Camisilla. Unfortunately for my opponent though, they do end up milling the spell, so that's not great for them, I guess. We're gonna play Yudi here. We should probably keep track. I forgot to keep track. You should probably keep keeping track of Frank's Island Destruction. I believe they have 0 copies in hand right now, so that should be good for us. But yeah, if you're playing against Dragon, it's pretty good to keep track of how many copies of Frank's Island Destruction your opponent has at any time. Once again, we'll just go for Camisilla here. The golden move is to play Camisilla into substandard puppet on turn 7, but unfortunately I drew her 1 card too late, so I did not quite manage to get there. My opponent is clearing my board. Unfortunately, they did manage to heal just out of Chaos Legion range thanks to Borlalai's spells, so we have to find a way to get the lethal elsewhere. We can go ahead and go for the Puppet Lancer and the Love Struck Puppeteer here. Go ahead and get rid of that, and then with Grand and Gita, we will just barely be able to clear this follower, which otherwise was actually pretty annoying. But at this point, we do know that they don't have any copies of what's her face? Galamu spell, which is very important because we want them to have to be forced to answer this board. As you can see by putting followers on board here, if my opponent doesn't clear them, they just die the Chaos Legion instantly, so they have to clear my whole board every turn, which makes it hard for them to storm phase, which is good because we're fairly low, and we want to be able to chain Chaos Legion into Sandalphon into Gilnalese, so the fact that we managed to stop that Galamu from going phase here is very important because of then we are not in range of just a second Galamu or a Sagatsumatsu. We go ahead and use Chaos Legion here to clear board while chipping them down as low as we can so that we can finish with Gilnalese next turn. If they are running urns, this game might be a bit problematic, but thankfully it looks like they weren't running urns. Well, the worst case we did have Camisilla plus substandard puppet ideas to answer the urns, so it wasn't the end of the world there, but of course it's better to not have to deal with it, so yeah, good for us I guess. Anyway, my opponent is unable to heal for obvious reasons, so we just go ahead and kill them with Gilnalese. So yeah, that's it for this game. Let's move on to one more game. And the last game for today is a game against Portal. It might be the Mirror. I think the Mirror is fairly common right now if you're running against Portal, but who knows what they are playing, right? Someone drops World of Games. I mean, some lists probably run World of Games, so it doesn't really tell us what they're running yet, so we just go ahead and pass that. We have a pretty solid hand here with Love Strike for early game and then into the Zwei Camisilla curve. All we need to find is Yok Xanta, and we are in a pretty good position. Go ahead and draw a Love Strike of our own to compete with theirs. My opponent plays World of Games here, and then here they pull out Devastating Soprano. Most likely it's Destruction, but I have seen some Destruction Evo hybrids, so we can't quite rule that out yet. We go ahead and just drop the Puppet Lancer here. We are holding the substandard puppet in case we want to use it with the main body or pair it with a discounted Camisilla depending on how the next few turns go. So we go ahead and just play the Puppet Lancer and convert it into an enhanced puppet for now. But we'll go ahead and drop Exia here, which is completely fine. We're just gonna go ahead and ruin their day with Zwei here. Unlike most decks though, Portal can answer Zwei with another Zwei of their own, so we're not super carefree I guess in this position. But now we'll go ahead and drop Imari here, which has a pretty good chance of clearing Zwei as well, so not great for us, but it's probably not a big deal. Then we'll go ahead and use Light of the Dewdrop here. And then Sincerity to transform my Zwei so they can trade into it. And then it looks like they didn't have another spell, so they do just pass here, which is fine. We're just gonna go ahead and draw another Zwei here. Top standard Puppet is also another option, honestly, at this point. It's not that we have York Zenta to clone Camellia with anyway. Camisilla with. Just go ahead and set up more wards here. And they only have one Ning on the board, so this plays around Congregant, I guess, and also against another Zwei. They probably don't have Zwei since they didn't play it last turn, but you know. We do play in the Flower Artisan, but we just pray they don't have that. And thankfully they didn't have Flower Artisan here. They will go with Imari. I'll go ahead and draw another card here. And then another Light of the Dewdrop here to draw more while summoning another little buddy, and they finish off with Love Struck. Oh, my Zwei manages to survive here, which is very lucky for me. Very happy to see that. Pick out another Camisilla, which is also very good. We can keep pressuring them on board here. Go ahead and trade here. We use the Unfeeling Out X to hold on to our Super Evo here. Honestly, it's not the worst idea to Super Evo here and just chip down a bunch of damage. Because there's my opponent, we can take advantage of the fact that my opponent doesn't have a very good room to play Congregant right now to Super Evo here, but I guess I didn't at the point where I was playing, so I guess that was a decision. If they would be at 10 right now if I had done that, which means that I would actually have lethal this turn if I Super Evolve last turn, but I guess I didn't. End up picking York Zenta here though, so we go ahead and save Camisilla for next turn where we can pair with York Zenta. And for now we just chip them down or putting out a ward to give Zwei a little bit of protection. Unfortunately, this opens them up to making eggs. They finally have free time. Up to now we were trying to pressure them on board so they wouldn't be able to summon eggs, but I guess they managed to summon eggs here. They managed to take most of their resources though. Especially their Evo points, which is very valuable because their main finisher, Axia, stops working without Evo points, which is quite good. We'll finally invoke Sandalphon here, which is cool. We're just gonna go ahead and go to Camisilla though. And we draw the last one from the deck as well. Might as well put a Lyria in there while we can. Thankfully we do have Sandalphon in hand, so we can look for a finish at some point. And we just go ahead and Super Evo Camisilla here, put on the pressure now that they are out of Evo points. And take out another Camisilla for good measure. Their only out now is Beelzebub, I think. Unfortunately, my Skybound R is a bit slow, so I can't quite kill them through Beelzebub right now, but actually I think I killed them if they went Beelzebub here. I'm not. Camisilla does a surprising amount of damage, I would say. My opponent will finally use Congregant to clear here. We're just gonna go hit at the Camisilla though. And here I accelerate Shoddy Plaything first and then into Substandard Puppet because I wanted the extra ward. It's also worth noting that a Shoddy Plaything can survive Flowery Artisan, so I guess I valued having the ward here over having an extra 3-4. I don't really think it matters in the long run, but it's just a position where I think there is some options. My opponent at this point is unable to clear this board. It doesn't really matter because we have Gilnalise anyway, as well as Sandalphon plus Grand Jita, so even if they manage to clear this board, they were still dead, so my opponent just concedes. So those are all the games I have for you today. Hopefully if it gave you some idea of how this deck works. You will notice that every game ended up with a Zwei into Camisilla curve, and that's because that's mainly how this deck wins. I think it's quite hard to win elsewhere just because the consistent onboard tempo is quite important for this deck to win, as well as the fact that Camisilla is your main and like more or less only source of free evos. You have Substandard Puppet as well, of course, but it's as the name implies, substandard compared to having Camisilla, so yeah, not that great of an evo deck. I think there's definitely probably more room for improvement. So, but I mean, you can win a decent amount of games. So if you just want to play Evo Portal, I guess this list is probably good enough to function with. Yeah. Anyway, that's it for today. See you next time. Bye bye.